Hello and welcome back to Good Game Nation, where we bring you all things TCG. My name is Preston. Today we are reviewing the news, and there's been some cool updates as of last week for the Premium Best Collection or whatever they call it, and then there's also a ton of new cards that got released this week. I think there's around 11. So we're gonna get through as much of the news as fast as possible so that we can get you out into your local tournaments as fast as possible. So let's start with the Treasure Booster set announced a while back. Just as a reminder, it's coming out August 30th. And what it's going to do is it's going to have 4 booster packs. And it's going to be a random pack from set 1 to set 5. And since it's 4 packs, it's $20. And it also comes with a promo. I don't think we know what that promo looks like yet. Or if there's going to be different promos, if it's the same promo for all of the booster packs. Most promo cards that come out of these booster packs are Dawn, so it might be a Dawn. It might be one of the promos that we don't have in the US yet. But this is interesting. It's an interesting way to get reprints out, or like restocking out of these older sets that are mostly out of print and stuff like that. I also have mixed feelings because I know people are crappy and like will just take stuff out that they want and then resell it as something that it's not. So just be careful when purchasing. Buy from people that you know, people that you trust, and don't get ripped off, because this is something you can really easily not get what you want out of it. Next up here, there is a premium collection for leaders, and it's a very weird set. It doesn't look like it's alt arts. These are the original arts, but it looks like they're only getting slight differences in like the tiniest of details for me. Let me know if I'm not catching it, but all I see is gold numbers and gold name. So leader, Eustace Captain Kidd, Supernova Kid Pirates, is the only thing that I see is really different. I mean, 5 Life is gold. Like, there's small details that have been changed, but like the art is the same. You get these 6 leaders. It's going to be $15. I believe at this point, the only place to get it is at Worlds in Dallas. It'll probably be in Worlds in Florida. But I don't know if they're putting it on the website yet. That's the only, like, if this is interesting to you, that's where you get it. I think it's skippable. Unless you, for some reason, like, if it was different art for the starter deck leaders, it would be one thing, but it's not. So it feels like a very odd product to me. 6 starter deck leaders that most people have. They're just kind of different. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not super excited about it, and I won't be in Texas to buy one, so it won't really matter. The next bit of news is really interesting. As of last week, we heard about all of the mangas being reprinted in the Premium Best Collection, or PRB, and then people started opening packs and weren't finding any of them. And it was originally like noted that there's going to be 1 manga per case. That's not what actually happened. That would be insane for Bandai to do. And the manga characters, so if we go in here and we set up our search, the manga cards are in this set. They are there. But it's very weird, and it's not something that the US has done yet, and this is something that Japan does in a ton of games. Pokemon does this, One Piece has been doing it for a while, and the concept's called a God Pack, and it happens in Japan with One Piece, where they put all of the leaders in a single pack, and that's your pack. In this set, all of the manga cards come in a single pack, one every like 60 cases or something crazy. It's a very small amount. But at the very beginning of the week, only people were pulling Namis. No one had seen any of the other manga, so we thought that people were just, whoever originally posted it had lied, that just to disrupt the market and buy a bunch of mangas while they were cheap. not totally the case. The information wasn't super great, but it wasn't a complete lie because these cards are in the set in Japan in a specific pack with just these cards in it. So it's all the mangas from Shanks to Nami, one after the other in a single pack. We've seen 3 or 4 people pull it. This is a video that shows it. We'll skip through it if we can, but you can see Shanks is on top, and then Ace, and then there's a weird effect because they added extra effects, which is annoying, but Soga King, Sabo, all of them are here. All of the OP05 mangas in a row. Yeah, and then Nami, and then that's it. So they're there. It is a reprint in some ways, but the US has not yet done this. We don't get God packs. At least I haven't heard of the US getting God packs. And that makes it very weird on what's going to actually happen when the set gets released in the US, because we do not do this. Like, there are not packs of English One Piece cards that have all of the alt-art leaders for that set in them. So I don't know if they're going to adapt it the same way. So we'll have to wait and see what happens when the set actually comes out. But there is a reprint in Japan. It's just so rare that I don't think it's actually going to affect the Japanese market very much. I mean, people were saying they opened up like 30 cases, which is ridiculous. I mean, Japan has a different count for cases. Cases are half the size of US cases. So 15 US cases worth of cards in Japan, and they didn't get any God packs. So it's very rare, but it is happening. So take that as you will. I don't think there's much to be worried about. I don't think it's going to affect the market too much, just because it's going to, if it happens in the US, it's going to be so rare. It's going to be more rare than a manga. It's going to be more rare than, maybe as rare as the signed Oda Luffy card. It's going to be tough to pull. And I don't think that's going to affect the market too much. And if this does happen in the US, I'm talking way too much about this. If this happens in the US, that pack is worth like $10,000 right now, which is an absolutely incredible amount of money. So I don't know how they're going to deal with that. I don't know how we'll deal with it in the US. Enough rambling on about this, talked way too much. There's a lot to get through. So let's jump straight into our first card. Cabbage, blue character, 5 cost 5k power, cross guild 2k counter. If you have a character buggy or emoji in play, this character cannot be KO'd by battle. That's pretty cool. Cabbage getting a second chance at being in this game, since I believe he's still banned in the US and English regions. Yeah, totally still banned, which is crazy. Yeah, the other Cabbage is banned. This Cabbage is here. It's a 2k counter. It can't be KO'd by battle if emoji or buggy or characters are on board. It fits the buggy type, where it's a 5 cost, which is really cool. I think I like this character. We'll see what happens next. But yeah, the blue buggy stuff seems like it's going to be really interesting to play, if not completely unplayable, which is totally what buggy stands for, I think. Could be completely broken, but is absolutely trash, so it's really cool. Moving on to Trafalgar Law. Trafalgar Law, purple character, 1 cost 2k power, Heart Pirates, 1k counter. On play, look at the top 4 cards of your deck and reveal up to 1 2 cost or greater card with the type Straw Hat Crew or Heart Pirates type, and put it into your hand, then place the rest of cards in the bottom of your deck in any order. This is pretty cool. I like that it's specifically a 2 cost or greater, which makes it so that you can't play the crazy like red Zoro-Weenie deck, but with purple red Luffy or something like that. But this works really nicely for red purple Law, red purple Luffy, if you're playing it probably a little bit differently than they're currently played. Most likely because that deck isn't super, I mean, I don't know, it might work in Red Purple Law. But I just imagine a very cool Heart Pirate Straw Hat Crew only deck that this would work nicely in. But 4 cards deep, 2 cost or greater is really nice. I think this is going to get a decent amount of play, and I like it quite a bit. And containing counter at the end of the day is really nice addition for having a searcher that might not be super important to play at the end of the game, but holding it for counter. Overall, love it. Let's move on to Doc Q. Doc Q, black character, 2 cost 0 power, Blackbeard Pirates, 1k counter. Activate main, you may rest this character. If your leader has the Blackbeard Pirates type, KO up to one of your opponent's cost 1 or lower characters. On KO, draw a card. So that's pretty, I mean, as the Blackbeard Pirates come out, we know they're not going to have on-play effects, so they have to have some type of on-attack or activate main effect to be playable. So at 0 power, which is super weird, you rest him and then you can KO. So I'm guessing that we're going to see a deck with Navy cards, unless the Blackbeard Pirates are just so good that you can play just straight Blackbeard characters to minus cost and then KO. There'll probably be some type of Navy integration into this deck because they're just so good. The Navy archetype is so good that it's played in most black decks, at least. And then since you're tapping it at 0 cost, when it gets KO'd, you get to draw a card. I think that's also a really nice effect for this type of archetype. Being able to put a weak character in rest mode and just beg your opponent to KO it so you can gain more value from it. And if they don't, you can set up to use his activate main again. Is quite nice, I think. Obviously, you can get around it by not KOing it, sending it back to hand, sending it to the trash or to the bottom of the deck, which would not activate that effect, which is something that you'll have to be worried about against this deck, because I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're going to have to play around. Next up, Kuzan, yellow character, 4 cost 5k power, Navy, 1k counter. On play, you may place one of your opponent's cost 3 or lower characters onto the top or bottom of their life face up. Your opponent trashes 1 card from their hand. That's pretty spicy. Being able to remove a card from play and then forcing them to remove a card from their hand is quite nice. The cost is placing one of your opponent's characters to their life, so they gain a life but lose a card in hand. And you are removing a threat from the board and making it so that they have to choose a card from their hand to get rid of, which is quite nice. For a 4 cost, I think that's an incredible effect. And the only downside is Blackbeard's going to be a thing, and this is an on-play effect. We'll have to figure out how to play around that. I don't know what people are going to do, if they're just going to change the type of decks they play, or the Blackbeard cards are just going to be so bad that you're not going to have to worry about it. Next up, name is translated as Building Snake. I don't know any of the red hair pirates, so could be right. Building Snake, red character, 1 cost 2k power, red hair pirates. Activate main. You may place this character on the bottom of its owner's deck. Give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 3,000 power for the turn. That sounds extremely familiar to 2 other cards that get played in Red Purple Law. What's his name? Is it Max and then Gordon? Yeah, it's Max and Gordon. Both already have this effect, so this is the 3rd time it's being printed. I know people were already annoyed that this effect was on 2 cards that were playable in the same deck, and now there's a 3rd version. I don't think you need 12 of this card with different attributes and different names, but there's a 3rd printing of an effect like this, which could be quite annoying. It was annoying when Gordon was the only version of this, and then now Law has 2 types. So pretty good. If you get a third version of it, that's quite nice. We'll have to see how we can use this card to be really annoying in the Shanks deck. Moving on to Tony Chopper, green character, 3 cost 4k power, Odyssey, Animal, Straw Hat Crew, 1k counter. End of your turn, set up to one of your Odyssey type characters with a cost of 4 or less as active. Super helpful, Tony, thank you. That's quite nice. He's going to come into play rest. It doesn't say that you can't target him, so if you for some reason play him by himself, which is kind of weird, you could probably set himself as active. But this is super helpful to protect some of your lower cost characters from being attacked the next turn, especially in this Odyssey deck, which is coming into play rested. And if this chopper lives, you can do it again. It's not a once ever effect, it's at the end of your turn. So every time you end your turn with this character on the board, you get to reactivate one of your 4 or less cards. That's quite nice. The deck is already really tough to play, I think, so I think it's already kind of sketch if you're going to be playing Chopper or any of the character cards in that deck. So if you do, though, I think this is a must. I think this is an absolute must if this deck gets played. Okay, up next. Ooh, okay, let's see. Silver's Rayleigh, red character, 5 cost 6k power, Roger Pirates, 1k counter, blocker. On play, if your opponent has 2 or more characters with an original power of 5,000 or more, draw 2 cards and discard 1 card from your hand. That's quite nice. Having your opponent having 2 characters with 5,000 power or more on board is quite likely, so you're most likely gonna play this exactly when they have 2. You're gonna get to draw cards. That's really nice. I quite like it. Also, it's interesting because after blocker is an explanation of what blocker does, which I don't remember always seeing, but maybe it's just a reminder that for new players that this is what blocker does. I'm not going to repeat it. We already know what it does. I like this card. I do believe we will see him quite often, and if we ever get a Roger leader, I couldn't imagine this not being played because it's good, and it's not leader locked, so you can play it anywhere. Yeah, I'm a fan. Next up, Frankie, purple character, 4 cost, 5k power, Straw Hat Crew, 1k counter, blocker. On play, Dom -2. Discard 1 card from your hand, draw 2 cards. So this is what I was thinking for the purple black Luffy, is that a lot of them are going to specifically say Don -2. The fact that they're still using Don minus as a part of the cost and the Sanji and the Zoro are different really confuses me, but I think it makes sense for those cards because they're a variable, and I don't think they want to confuse people by doing like a Don -X and then explaining that X has to equal at least 1. I think that's way too confusing, so the Sanji and the Zoro get a pass. With that being said, Don -2 is exactly what you need in the Luffy deck to be able to activate his effect, and we love to see it. I think this is a good card. It's hard to say. The purple cards are going to be getting really strong in this set, and purple is rising in power as it's been really bad in the first like 4 or 5 sets, maybe even longer. So being able to have good cards is going to be super important for this black and purple Luffy. The cost of this is 2 Dawn from the field to your Dawn deck, and then you also have to have 1 card in your hand to discard first as cost to draw 2 cards. So the downside is if your hand is empty, this card is, if you only have this card in your hand when you play it, it's not worth playing because you can't activate his effect. But it's a 4 cost draw 2 and ramp with the leader effect, which is pretty cool. I think I like it. I hope he gets an alt art because we need more Frankie alt arts. Okay, next up, Koala. Koala, yellow character, 6 cost, 6k power, revolutionary army, blocker. On play, you may add the top or bottom card of your life to your hand. Play up to 1 cost 4 or less revolutionary army character from your hand. If you played a card this way, draw 1 card. That's kind of cool. So I will always be in favor of cards that add life to hand, because I love the idea as your life as another resource to draw from. So a lot of decks are able to place a bunch of cards into that area, so you just have another way to draw an extra card, and then you get to draw a card also. So you're getting 2 cards from your hand, 2 cards to your hand, and then a card on the board. Technically 2 cards on the board, totaling a cost of potentially 10, which I think is quite nice. I do really like this. It is a decent effect for a super rare, and then it has blocker on top of it. There's a lot of blocker in this set from today's video, and interestingly enough, the blocker is not explained on this Koala. I guess super rares don't need the explanation, just the commons and stuff like that, which again, super interesting that it was added sometimes and not added other times, because I think the Frankie does have it. It's here, but it's not. And then I think this is the explanation for what Dom minus means. So it's really interesting that at least these versions of the cards, which are pre-production most likely, are all over the place with their formatting. I like this card. Get 2 cards from your hand, get to play another character. Quite nice. I am a big fan of everything that Koala is doing. And obviously if she had counters, she would be broken. I think would be a very nice card. Without counter, it gets a little awkward at the 6 cost range, I think. Let's move on to probably the stupidest card I've ever read. Special Muggy Ball, 2 cost, blue event, Blackbeard Pirates. Main, your opponent returns one of their characters with a cost of 6 or less to their hand. Your opponent returns one of their characters with a cost of 6 or less to the owner's hand. So they pick up a card of their choice with 6 or less. Trigger, return 1 character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. So that's a choice of your characters or their characters. So I say it's ridiculous because it's a 2 cost that removes a 6 or less on the board, and it's an activate main. It's a very low cost, so you can really force them to pick up a card that they don't want to by making it the only card on the board at that point. And a 6 or less is crazy for 2 costs, even though the choice is taken away from the player and your opponent gets to choose. I feel like you have so many options that you can get it down to force them to pick up a card that you couldn't target otherwise. And at 2 costs, that's insane. I think it's too good not to play in blue decks, even if it has less initiative. You don't get to choose the card, but again, I think it's extremely playable, and I feel like it's hitting way above its weight class at 2 cost. Yeah, I don't think the balancing of making your opponent choose is a balancing point for this card. I think it's still extremely strong, being able to do a 6 or less at 2 cost. That's crazy to me, because if you just keep playing, you had 2 of these in hand and they only have 2 characters on board, they're picking them both up. Paying 2 costs is not a big deal at that point, because you're going to be able to get rid of both blockers if there's 2 blockers on board or whatever, and then still attack for game. It's quite ridiculous, I think, for its cost value. Moving on to the last card. Black Spiral, 2 cost, black event, Blackbeard Pirates. Counter, nullify the effects of up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters and give them minus 4k power during this turn. Trigger, nullify the effect of up to one of your opponent's leader or characters during this turn. I feel like that's quite crazy as well. because it says during this turn. I guess it's a counter, so it's not as crazy as it could be. So on counter phase, give your opponent minus 4k. I think that's been done before. So that's not actually that crazy. I thought in my head I went, oh crap, this is an activate main, but no, it's a counter. Minus 4,000 and remove the effect is quite interesting. There's not too many effects that activate. There's a couple later effects that are on opponent's turn. I mean, then there's Ace, which is kind of funny for who this character is and who he was probably fighting when this manga panel came out. Nullifying effects, Blackbeard does it. It is what it is. I think this is a pretty decent 2-cost minus 4k counter. When it comes down to it, Blackbeard's going to do crazy stuff, and that's just another one of its crazy things. You can consider this its plus 4,000 counter. Most archetypes already have these as a plus 4. This is a minus 4. Basically the same concept. It'll be interesting to see how it interacts. If there's cards that say this card cannot be like targeted by effects and stuff like that, what would happen? But we'll have to see when the Q&A comes up for those. This was a long one. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you're still here, hit that like button. If you want to get more One Piece TCG content, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, peace.